Thank you, mrsandoval, for agreeing to do this interview.
It's my pleasure.
Okay, the first question.
If you saw what I see right now, Mr. Evans, you gotta check your students.
What was it like? What was life for you like growing up as a Latino?
Define Latino. If you mean considering that I am from Ecuadorian descent, I can explain it in 3 phases. Number 1, growing up Latino, I didn't know I was Latino. I just thought I was an American until I got to know my brothers and sisters. When I didn't grow up with them, they came to this country after I was born, I would say about 8 years after I was born. I guess growing up Latino, I didn't realize I was, a different culture until I started going to school. I grew up in a predominantly black neighborhood in Hempstead, New York, Long Island. I was considered probably white to a lot of them because there wasn't too many Latinos in the neighborhood. So growing up, it was a challenge of trying to find who I am, my identity, and also trying to relate to my surroundings, which was African American culture. I would say it's not until high school that I realized in Latino pride. I would say after meeting like so many different people from all over the town, especially from the immigrant population. So when I met my first Ecuadorian friend, I was like, wow, you're Ecuadorian? Like, it was just big for me. And then obviously when I got into college, being Latino was the thing. It was the popular thing for me. Fighting for Latino rights, fighting against discrimination. I think it became a movement for me being Latino. So to describe myself, I will probably always say Latino first. And probably always saying in the struggle of fighting for rights, fighting for fairness, and to end discrimination against us. Growing up Latino, I would say the last thing, facing discrimination, probably the worst thing that's happened to me was being told that I speak such good English, or go back to your country. Things like that I probably faced too early in my life in high school.
What were some injustices in society while you were growing up? You did mention discrimination. Anything else?
Police brutality, which is still an issue now. I think police brutality was the first thing that I experienced organizing against. It was in college when I first went to my first protest in New York City against the killing of Anthony Baez, who was killed, choked to death by a cop when he was told to put the music of his car lower, told to lower his music, and ended up with his death. So I think I experienced true organizing, true movement for that issue against police brutality. And I found myself very afraid around police in that times because they weren't very happy of us protesting. I mean, you're talking about all the universities, all the SUNYs coming together to protest this movement, this issue that was growing. I mean, it was a lot of incidents of police brutality. And as you can see today, it still exists and it's still an issue.
At what time in your life did you start to be aware of issues in society?
I would say probably my sophomore, junior year in high school. I was formerly part of a gang. It was a local gang. I'm still part of it today. We're just a bunch of old guys that just get together and reminisce. In history class, I never got to learn about my own history. Maybe because I didn't go to school or I didn't go to class every day. But when I asked about it, I was told, we covered it or it's not going to be on the test. So when I was actually involved in my gang, I actually tried to educate some of my gang member friends and read books, and actually went to the library got my first library card as a gang member. It was interesting. And part of a gang, you also have your female gang. So we called them Precious Queens. And my first job was to educate them and try to get them out of the gang, because it was kind of hypocritical. I was in the gang, but trying to get them out of it. And what I used to do is take them to the library and read books about, believe it or not, Simon Bolivar and liberators, Fidel Castro, things like that. And I just started loving history, and that's what got me to like do things with the gang. And I think that's what helped me get out of it. Like, stop hanging out, stop fighting, because I started getting interested more in books. I forgot the question, by the way.
Oh, the question was, at what time in your life did you start to be aware of issues in society?
Yeah, so I realized that we weren't learning anything. And to get to the kids, you have to really come to that level. And as a kid, that's what got me.
When and how was your first time getting involved in your community?
Police brutality. And then once I finished college, when I went to my master's program in St. John's University, I got involved in immigrant labor rights. And it was the best thing in the world. I actually got to help workers organize themselves as unions and fight for their rights. And it was sad because my first volunteer job was to teach them about labor rights. And every Friday they would come in, about 40 people every Friday, 40 different people, 40 different people, all with cases of discrimination, unpaid wages, kicked out of their jobs for no reason. At one point, I even educated the guys that were beat up in Farmingville when they have that huge racial incident where two white contractors picked up these two Mexicanos, pretended to pick them up for a job, took them to an empty warehouse and beat the living hell out of them. Didn't think they were going to survive, and they did. Took them to court. I was there in court. I saw the guys' faces, and we actually won the case. So the best thing in the world was the labor rights movement for me. It was sad because my first job was to educate anyone who had a problem. And the way we did it is that if you had a problem, you came in, you saw me first. Then, after you finished the meeting, we would listen to your individual problem, and then you would have to meet with other organizers to organize your own group. So it wasn't like you go to a lawyer and the lawyer helps you. You had to do all the work. We gave you the tools for it. That was the beauty of it. So when I realized that, I was like, wow, this is great. You actually empowered them to fix their own problems through people's work. Right? Them getting together on Saturdays, having meetings, and things like that. Sometimes I would do things like call up the employer and be like, hi, my name is mrsandoval. I'm from the Workplace Project, the Center for Labor Rights, because we became very famous in Long Island for fighting for labor rights. And I've gotten spit on my face. I've been called, a wetback. Meanwhile, I'm a gringo. I called the mayor of Farmingdale racist on TV. I got in trouble for that. Yeah, gotta be a little subtle how you do things. So I learned basically everything about organizing through the Workplace Project. And to this day, I'm still a member, but I don't volunteer anymore, which is probably one thing I regret right now.